Hamas, the ruling power in the Gaza Strip for the past 5 years, declares that it will be part of the Palestinian Authority's future regime. But is this regime legitimate? In 2006, Hamas was elected to power in the Gaza Strip, beating Fatah. However, within a year, Hamas was ruling every institution of government in the Strip. Hamas methodically murdered its opponents in their hundreds and thousands, opponents whose only crime was their disagreement with the extremist religious ideology of Hamas. Hamas took control of all positions of power and government in the Strip by forcibly and methodically eliminating anyone in those positions affiliated with Fatah. Since taking power in the Gaza Strip, Hamas, like other tyrannical regimes throughout history, imposed a series of decrees attacking the rights and freedom of the individual. The Hamas police forces act as a modesty police, strictly enforcing an Islamic dress code within the Gaza Strip. Women who go in public in immodest clothing are humiliated and arrested, as are unmarried couples walking together in public. Hamas attacks Israeli civilians and also regularly endangers the residents of Gaza, unceasing rocket fire with one goal. These same rockets are fired from residential areas, schools, and hospitals, which are also used to store weapons and which are chosen deliberately to use their citizens as human shields for Hamas. The Hamas plans to become part of the Palestinian Authority's regime. Does this sound legitimate to you?
For the past several years, the Hamas terror organization has been ruling the Gaza Strip, supported by Iran and Hezbollah. For this entire period, thousands of rockets and mortars have been fired at Israeli civilians. Hamas invests much money and efforts to build terror infrastructure in civilian areas and underground throughout the Gaza Strip. Hamas has developed sophisticated smuggling methods. For several years, Hamas has been digging tunnels under the Sinai-Gaza border in order to smuggle weapons, ammunition, and explosives, all supplied by Iran. Hamas has camouflaged the openings of these tunnels under the guise of civilian housing, factories, greenhouses, and mosques. Tons of explosive materials, powerful explosive devices, rockets, RPGs, grenades, assault rifles, missiles, and anti-tank rockets have all been smuggled through these tunnels and stored in these civilian homes, mosques, schools, and hospitals. Hamas built its training camps and placed rocket launching sites, explosive devices, and snipers nearby medical centers, schools, and other public buildings to gain immunity while taking advantage of the local population as human shields. Hamas used the large open spaces in mosques in order to store weaponry in opposition to international law, and has in such a way turned these locations into battle zones. The use of women, the elderly, and children is built in the terror strategy of Hamas. Schools have been booby-trapped. The lives of children and youth have been placed in danger. Schools and educational institutes have been turned into rocket and mortar launching sites. In many instances, Hamas deliberately prevented the local population from leaving the areas of battle with the intention of using them as human shields, so as to prevent the IDF from hitting terror infrastructure. When an explosive device is detonated and the house is destroyed, Hamas puts the blame and responsibility on Israel for hitting civilians and property. Tons of explosive materials and underground explosive devices were found hidden in the streets. The explosive barrels targeted armored vehicles such as tanks and personnel carriers. These types of explosives were placed close to buildings, including those with people inside, so that the demolished building would also serve as obstacles for the advancing forces. In this example, a building where terrorists were hiding has been hit. This caused secondary explosions in the adjacent building, making it collapse due to the many additional explosive devices hidden inside. In an attempt to gain protection, Hamas positioned its rocket launching sites by public buildings such as medical centers, soccer fields, the Palestinian Association for the Rehabilitation of the Disabled, and gas stations. Hamas chose the place and the tactic of using uninvolved civilians as human shields. This map and other findings are all evidence of how Hamas purposely built its terror and combat network as an inseparable part of its civilian infrastructure. Hamas chose this battlefield. Hamas chose to place its rocket and mortar launchers within the uninvolved civilian population. Hamas chose to build its fortifications and place its explosive devices and snipers deliberately between buildings in which people were hiding.
The Fajr 5, a rocket threat from Gaza. In recent years, thousands of Qassam and Grad rockets have been fired upon Israel from the Gaza Strip. Hamas upgraded its arsenal by acquiring Iranian-made Fajr 5 rockets. The Fajr's 90-kilogram warhead stands as Hamas's largest and most lethal threat. Within its range of 75 kilometers lies the largest population center in Israel, the Tel Aviv metropolitan area. If launched, the rocket would inevitably paralyze the Israeli economy and school system, threatening more than 3.5 million civilians in the heart of Israel.
العربية والإسلامية اليوم صاعدة ناهضة سوف تستعيد زعامة العالم،
ولذلك أصبح الموت عند الشعب الفلسطيني صناعة.
ستقود الانتفاضة تلو الانتفاضة،
ومن يقف مع إسرائيل سنقف ضده.
أيها الأمريكان سيعاقبكم الله،
وأن الصهاينة أعداؤنا، أن إسرائيل عدوة الجميع.
اهدم اليهود وأعوانهم. إننا نحرص على الموت كما تحرصون على الحياة.
في هذه الشوارع جندلوا اليهود واحد تلو الآخر، فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله.